Hello. For context, I am going to go over a lesson I taught at Green Valley Ranch High School for 11th grade AP English. I'm going to try to, as I go along, explain, what I did during the class period. It was unfortunate I just never filmed any of the lessons I taught, but I'll go over what I did and also how it might look different in an e-learning environment. I'll do a brief, just like overview over most of the parts. I'll try to do the modeling more live as like, how I'd actually teach it. Um, but just for context, the reason why, so the focus of this class period was the AP free response question number 2, which is rhetorical analysis. This is what that looks like. This is the one we went over for this class period. Um, so on this day, the students got back papers they wrote of the similar prompt, the rhetorical analysis. Both me and my host teacher, Ms. Cochran, noticed that the students, they struggled with the analysis portion of the writing, and they did a little bit too much summary rather than explaining how the writer achieved their goals or not, just like, actually analyzing like literary devices. So that was the focus of this class period, was reviewing, how to accomplish how to successfully write the rhetorical analysis essay for the AP um, exam. Obviously, the AP exam changed due to COVID-19. Um, Hopefully by next May, this lesson makes sense in the current context as well, if it goes back to, what the AP English test typically looks like. Um, so just a brief overview of the do now. I'll go to the handout that the students would have if it was in person, and then they would have access to this in Google Classroom or something like that if it was in an e-learning environment. To start, they were just basically to compare the two student examples of actual writing they used with their last rhetorical analysis essay. The first one is the exemplar, and the second one here is more indicative of what most of the students' writing looked like. It was just too much summary, not enough explaining, the statements they made in their body paragraphs. So students have time here to compare the two in person. We share it out loud, and I use like the whiteboard to compare the pros and cons of each. In an e-learning environment, maybe I'll have them like make comments for each one. And also, as I said before, they got their teacher feedback from either me or Ms. Cochran from their previous rhetorical analysis essays in this class period. So here is basically where they write down, they reflect and say whether, basically just what they need to work on in order to successfully write this essay in the future. So I'll go now to the part that I wanted to focus on, which was the modeling. um, I think it's important that when you get the prompt right from the beginning, this introduction paragraph is important. So here in the classroom, I use the overhead camera so that the students can follow along with my note taking in real time. And I'll basically just try to like mimic what I did in the classroom during this period. And also like this, or in the e-learning environment, it might look something like this, where I'm screen sharing and like highlighting stuff, asking the students to take notes in real time. So I will mimic it as if it's the e-learning environment. Okay, so let's go over the introduction paragraph. Everyone please go to question 2, the introduction paragraph. Please remember that the introduction provides us like really important context when we want to analyze writing rhetorically. So right from the beginning, if I'm reading this and I'm trying to plan out my essay, right from the beginning, on the 10th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., right away, this is what I would write down right next to this is exigence, or just highlight this. So write down in your notes exigence next to this first statement, on the 10th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So right away we're giving, if you don't remember, exigence is basically answering the why. Why is the writer writing this? And here it's because it's the anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And as you read this passage, you'll find out, why Cesar Chavez is using this occasion to write about the topic that he writes about. So that's your exegesis right here. And then, as I already indicated, so this is written by Cesar Chavez, and the introduction paragraph gives us, a little bit about him. If you could know nothing about him, and you know that, then the prompt gives you that he's a labor union organizer and a civil rights leader. So right there, we know, the type of audience he's writing for as well. So like someone who's like interested in civil rights. And then we know the context is that it was an article in a magazine. And then the next important thing to pay attention to is the prompt. Some of you struggled with staying on the prompt. So when you are reading this introduction paragraph, what I would do is like highlight this section. Let's go with this section. Sorry about that. Analyze the rhetorical choices Chavez makes to develop his argument about nonviolence resistance. So while you're writing, you need to always connect back to what are the rhetorical choices that Chavez is making, and it's all about his argument about nonviolence resistance. Okay, so I would write prompt right here. Okay, so then that is basically what I modeled in real time in the classroom once again. And then in the digital environment, that might look a little bit different. I would like go over this maybe like during the literacy block, and then give them, I'll just do an overview of the rest of the lesson. So after that, I was really trying to push like how does he say it rather than like what the Chavez writes, because answering how is actually doing rhetorical analysis rather than just like overly summarizing. These were some just guiding questions for students as they worked independently afterwards. They were to actually read through this part, annotate, and in order to help prepare themselves for the actual writing of the essay. I've really tried to emphasize the importance of annotations in terms of like preparing to write a good essay. I'm going to skip this part. This was a graphic organizer they did with their table groups, which just helped them with more like rhetorical context. I don't know if that would be the same in the e-learning environment. The main portion of the class was this independent working time where they were to, I'll go back to the packet right here. Based on their annotations, they were to kind of do a working thesis, topic sentences, what type of evidence they would use. And then both myself and Ms. Cochran, we used some active monitoring. So what we did as they independently worked is that we would give them a check mark if their thesis was like adequate for this type of writing. If not, we gave them an X, just wrote it down, and then they would have to keep on revising until they got it right before moving on to the mastery check. In an e-learning environment, this might just be a little bit different. I think one thing as we're trying to transition, make e-learning as effective as possible is how do we make collaboration work. This might just be the assignment and the students turn in their outlines and then I give them feedback. More through like Google Classroom or something like that, which is just like, I guess, the nature of not being with them in real time. And their mastery check was to choose one of their topic sentences from the outline and construct a body paragraph. And it was really pushing them to push their analysis because that's what they really struggled with on their last rhetorical analysis essay. So that's just an overview of a lesson I taught. I will include this packet that the students had, and then an e-learning environment, they would just have it in Google Classroom, something like that. I'll include the PowerPoint as well. And I'll also include the lesson plan for this lesson. And this lesson was a part of the unit that I'll include for the unit plan. Okay, thank you.